Welcome to Coffee with the Journalist, a podcast by One Pitch featuring the tech industry's most well-known journalists. The goal of our show is to uncover the real person behind the real stories you love to read. We discuss their beat and news coverage, what their inbox looks like, and a whole lot more. On today's show, we're joined by Katharine Schwab, the deputy editor of Fast Company's technology section. Katharine covers large tech companies such as Microsoft and Facebook and how technology affects everyday consumers. On the show today, Katharine talks about her transition from writer to editor, the importance of having a good subject line to grab her attention, how the tech team at Fast Company decides what stories to write about, and more. Let's dive in and hear more from Katharine on today's episode.
Hey everyone, welcome to Coffee with the Journalist, another great episode we have today with Fast Company's Katharine Schwab. I'm so glad you're here, Miss Katharine. Are you drinking coffee?
I'm drinking water. It's too late in the day for me.
It's too late in the day too for me. You know, it's about 90-something% of people that we have on this are not drinking coffee.
Well, if I had decaf coffee, I would be all over that.
Possibly. Yeah,
at home,
we might have to change the name. Where are you right now? New York City?
I am. I'm currently in New York City in my apartment at my little home office.
Home office. Aren't we all?
My home office is I've got a desk. It's like my living room and my dining room all in one room.
Oh, it's everything.
It feels very New York.
Sounds in New York. I was just going to say, sounds like New York. Welcome. Well, thank you for being here. As people know, you are currently a staff editor at Fast Company, have been there about a year, and you were previously an associate editor, and you've been at The Atlantic. You've been also at Stanford Arts Review, so lots of good experience, and SF Chronicle and Seattle Times. So you've been around. I want to start by asking about your day-to-day with your job. What is it like being particularly an editor for Fast Company?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've had a kind of an interesting journey at Fast Company. I started as a kind of a freelance writer and then kind of was a full-time writer and now have transitioned to editing. So it's been definitely an interesting transition. This September will be my 1-year mark as an editor. But, you know, the main part of my job is really deciding what stories we cover. So, you know, we have a very small team. So it's a lot of kind of assigning stories to our staffers and then also working on freelance pitches. And then also, you know, we do a lot of kind of op-eds and contributed essays as well. So there's a lot of decision making, a lot of headline writing, and then, you know, of course, the nitty gritty editing sentences.
Yeah. So we always talk about inboxes on this particular show because people want to know, well, what does your inbox look like? So do you get a lot of pitches directly, or how does your inbox look?
Yeah, I do get a lot of pitches, and I think it's been kind of frustrating recently because I've also transitioned the topic that I cover. So I used to be a design reporter for Fast Company, and now I've transitioned kind of full-time to covering tech, but a lot of people in my inbox have not tracked that transition.
Oh.
So I still get a lot of pitches around architecture or kind of niche design stuff that is just not relevant to me anymore.
Why are they still pitching you that then?
It's really annoying.
I don't understand.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people don't do their research. It's very clear.
It says deputy tech editor right on your Twitter, folks.
Mm-hmm. It does. Yeah. It's very clear. It's in my handle. I have people asking, and then, you know, I try to kind of let people know, hey, you know, I don't cover this anymore. You know, please reach out to our design reporters.
Don't tell me their next question is, oh, well, what do you cover?
Oh, it is. Oh, it is.
No.
It is. It literally says in my email signature, deputy tech editor. It's pretty obvious what I cover.
That's awful.
If they say that, I just don't respond. I'm like, you can do your own research on that. I'm really easy to find on the internet.
Of course. Oh, God.
Yeah. Pet peeve.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of pet peeves shared on this show here. Are you one of those inbox zero people? Like, how do you fly through the pitches?
Oh, no. Oh, gosh, no.
Tell us more.
I am not an inbox zero person. I try to have things read, at least. But my inbox is quite a mess. I tend to have kind of everything that I'm working on or that is still active, whether it's pitches I'm considering or, you know, if I'm reporting something, all of those messages, of course, things I need to get back to, edits that are waiting, all of that stuff, you know, kind of sits in a big jumble in my inbox. And then, you know, I have all the unread messages that I try to go through maybe once a day, but I try to keep it to just once a day because otherwise it gets really overwhelming.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would imagine. This is what every person we chat with too has, which is just how do you deal with the deluge of just so many.
Well, and if you get behind,
then you get behind and then you get depressed. Like you can't handle it. But then on the extreme side, we've had a handful of people who are ninja-like inbox zero people.
Really?
Within the hour. Oh yeah, it's fascinating.
I'm so impressed.
It's fascinating. And I don't know how, I mean, it's your full-time job.
Yeah, you could never get anything else done. At least I couldn't. That's for sure.
Yeah. Gosh. So what makes you open an email, or let's say more specifically a pitch? Is it all about the subject line? Is it, you know, the person? Is it what?
So I have a confession to make that I'm so bad with remembering people who are pitching me. And I get sometimes, you know, I get emails saying, we worked together on this story once. Like, don't you remember me? And I feel so terrible about it. But it's really the subject line. I mean, I think I do get a lot of just like, you know, spam, you know, they've sent it to 1,000 people kind of pitches. And, you know, those are deleted pretty quick. I do try to respond and at least say, you know, this isn't a fit or whatever, but...
You do? To all of those?
No, not to those, not to the big spam ones. But if someone has taken the time to like craft something and has clearly put some thought into it, I try to at least be, you know, respectful of their time and say either no thank you or ask a couple questions or whatever it is. But yeah, the subject line definitely means a lot. I'm still figuring out my strategy on this
protocol, yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
But because I, you know, used to cover design and have now covered tech, I feel like the pitches have not really caught up to that yet.
Gotcha.
So I'm trying to kind of encourage people who are pitching things that are more in my wheelhouse to continue, you know, to reach out to me when they have interesting stuff.
Earlier you said, Katharine, that you guys have a small team and you are funneling through, okay, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to publish? What stories are we going to do? How does that happen? Is it a daily meeting that occurs? And then what happens from there with the actual story? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so it's not really daily because, you know, we're a magazine. We're, you know, sensitive to the news cycle, but we're not tied to it, which is a really lovely freedom to have. Mm-hmm. We don't have a daily meeting, but, you know, I think we are talking every day and kind of going through, oh, this looks interesting. Oh, should we follow up on this? What could be a unique kind of more Fast Company angle on this bigger story? And, you know, from there, often it's kind of managing the capacity of my writers to make sure they're not overwhelmed because they all have so much going on all the time. And often there's things that would be great to cover and we just don't have the capacity because we're so tiny. Mm-hmm. You know, and we're really going kind of up against staffs that entirely cover tech, or big publications have dedicated reporters for each big tech company. I mean, we're so far away from that.
Yeah.
So we really have to be smart and, you know, try to choose in a savvy way what it makes sense to spend our time on. So we just can't keep up with, you know, all the tech news that's happening every day. It's a constant struggle to figure out, you know, what stories make the most sense for us to be telling.
Mm-hmm. You recently did a story on Pinterest, and I know you wanted to chat about that. So how did that story come to be? And tell us a bit more about it.
Yeah, so in mid-June, two women who used to work at Pinterest, Ifoma Azoma and Erica Banks, both went public with allegations of discrimination and kind of talked a lot about their experiences working at Pinterest as Black women, kind of in response to Pinterest's Black Lives Matter statement. They really wanted to call it out for how hypocritical it was based on how poorly they were treated at the company. And so, I mean, everyone picked up this story. Every news outlet, every tech section of every news outlet covered this in some way, shape, or form. And I originally reached out to them kind of with the idea of actually them publishing a first-person essay about their experiences. I try to do that often because I think hearing directly from people whose lives have been impacted by technology, whether that's, you know, through their work or kind of on a more personal level, that can be a really powerful way to tell a story that we don't see as much. So that's something that I personally feel invested in helping those stories be told. So I originally reached out to them about that. And then, you know, it quickly became clear that that wasn't really the right format for the story. And so after a long interview with them, I kind of decided that I really wanted to focus on this practice of leveling, which is something that happens in tech. It's kind of the fundamental way employees are structured at a tech company. They're divided into levels.
I'd never actually heard of it before until I was looking at your piece, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a tech-specific thing.
Yeah.
And so I thought that, because the story had already been told so much based on their tweets, their viral tweets about this, I thought I could really kind of bring something new to the story by looking at the history of leveling and looking at how leveling has been used in tech generally in a discriminatory way. There is an ongoing Google lawsuit where essentially the main plaintiff was misleveled.
Mm-hmm.
She was brought in at a lower level. And so I spoke to the employment lawyer for that case, and he was able to provide some really crucial background to these women's stories at Pinterest. And in some ways, it felt like a rare story because, they'd gone public. They had both kind of done everything right. They'd filed discrimination complaints with the state of California. They had tried everything internally to get their levels corrected and were denied. And so they were so brave in speaking about their experiences and really being the face of this. And it was great to be able to bring some of that extra context that this is, systemic. This is a systemic problem.
Oh, yeah. Interesting with this piece, too, because the story was out there.
Yeah.
And yet you were then able to take it, use it in a different way, make it into something totally different, and then thinking it was going to be a first-person narrative, but then finding that was not the best format. I mean, that just shows the evolution of a story that can happen.
Yeah, it was kind of a wild ride. And it was funny, after the story was published, one of the women reached out to me and said, "You remember when this was going to be a first-person essay?" I'm so glad that wasn't the form it ultimately took, because, this was the right way to tell this story.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of stories, what type of reading do you do? What are you reading?
Oh, there's so much to read. I mean, it's one of the pleasures of my job is that reading is, an important part of my job. And there's so much incredible tech journalism that's happening constantly. So, I'm a really big fan of Motherboard. Advice does really amazing.
Oh, Vice is so good.
Kind of scrappy, accountable tech journalism that I'm such a fan. The Times' tech reporters are some of the best on the planet. Mm-hmm. And so I read their work pretty religiously. And, it's interesting. It's been great to watch Medium's tech publication 10, which is relatively new, just explode. And they've done such fascinating work.
Yep.
So I'm always kind of keeping an eye on what they're doing and what they're thinking about too. But I mean, there's so much. And I think that's what's really exciting about working in this field right now. And really why I pushed in my career to get to tech, because it's such a fascinating nexus of different topics. You have kind of the technical piece of it, but really the story is a culture story, and it's a business story, and it's a political story, and it's all of these things mixed together in a way that other beats, I feel like, don't have that in the same way.
Oh, yeah. So are you saying you always wanted to be in tech and you now finally have arrived?
Well, no. I mean, I initially, I wouldn't say I have arrived, but, it's certainly been something that I've been wanting to do for a while now. And I actually, when I started my career, I was an editorial fellow at The Atlantic.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
I was placed on the culture team. So in my background, when I was in college, I did a lot of kind of feature writing and arts. That was really, my passion. And I got to The Atlantic and I realized very quickly that covering culture in a mass media format really means writing about TV shows, movies, and music. And, a lot of people do that so well, but I realized, that wasn't really what I was kind of most interested in. And, I went to Stanford, and so I had been kind of soaking in the kind of Silicon Valley ethos for a while. And so I realized, tech is really the biggest culture story of our time. I mean, it's shaping the way we think at such a fundamental level that's hard to kind of grasp, really. In kind of realizing that, I kind of slowly started trying to make my way over from culture over to tech more specifically. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, this current job has in some ways certainly been kind of a culmination of a lot of years of work of trying to position myself more on this beat that I care about a lot.
Well, and you can't escape it, tech, at this point, because it is culture and it is daily life and it is politics and it's everything. Which I think is a really cool part.
Yeah.
Today's interview will continue after this brief message brought to you by OnePitch. Are you curious to learn more about the unique ways OnePitch helps connect journalists with brands and sources? Head to onepitch.co for more information about how we're helping each side save time and connect more effectively. Sign up for your free account today. Now, back to today's episode.
Well, let's play a little word association game, Katharine. I'm going to just give you a word and you just tell me what the first thing is that you think of.
Oh boy. Okay.
There's no wrong answers and sometimes it's really fun.
Okay.
So, first one, food.
Curry.
Drink.
Water.
Hobby.
Plants.
Plants? Like house plants?
Yes.
I love it. Are you a successful houseplant owner?
I am. I'm moving in a couple of weeks, and so I had to count how many plants I have.
Oh my gosh. How many do you have?
I have about 40 plants.
In your New York apartment? Oh my God. It's like probably a jungle in there.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome. I think I'm originally...
That is rad.
Yeah, I'm originally from California. And when I first moved to the East Coast, the winters were really rough.
Oh, yeah.
And I really felt the seasonal depression. And in preparation for the winter a couple of years ago, I said, you know what, I need to buy some plants. And it's helped me so much. And I love them. They're my children.
I love it.
And, I try to propagate them. And I'm still very much a novice, but it's been a really fun hobby.
That's the best one I've heard so far. Okay. Social media.
Facebook.
Mobile app.
Twitter.
New York City.
Subway.
Democracy.
Trump.
Oh.
Not in a positive way. I'll just add that. The antithesis, perhaps.
I'm sure. How about Apple?
iPhone.
Privacy.
iPhone.
Journalism.
Internet.
Pitch.
Annoying.
And then inbox.
Overwhelming.
Yeah. That's how it is. Okay. What do you think about the future of journalism? Speaking of democracy, or speaking of all the things we're talking about, tech.
Yeah. I mean, I feel really grateful to have had such a good run in journalism so far, but it certainly is a scary industry. And with the pandemic, it feels very uncertain. I feel really lucky to be at a small media company. We haven't had mass layoffs. And, I do feel very nervous, particularly for the future of local news. I think that's something that is the piece about the future of journalism that feels the most worrisome to me. But, I see places like ProPublica, which is a nonprofit newsroom. And I find that really exciting and inspirational. And, the incredible tech reporter, Julia Angwin, kind of spun out of ProPublica and launched her own nonprofit newsroom. And I feel like that model, particularly for accountability journalism, is a really exciting one. And I'm hopeful that we'll see more of that. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if it's successful. I mean, it still does feel like a bit of an experiment.
Yes, yes.
But I'm excited to see that in particular for investigative journalism, because it's so hard to do. I mean, at a place like Fast Company, even, we just don't have the resources to do that kind of work often, which is also why I feel really proud of this Pinterest story, because I was able to do a little bit more of that. But given kind of how fast the internet moves, we don't always have the resources for that kind of work. So I'm excited about that piece. And, even though the pandemic has, ruined our events business to some degree, as it has for every media company, we have done some virtual events, and that has been really exciting. We actually had one last week. And it was great. I mean, it was a bit of an experiment for us, but it turned out to be, we had really, really great conversations. And, that gives me some hope that, the events piece of journalism will kind of continue even through the pandemic.
I hope so.
Yeah. But the ad model just, oof.
No, that's...
It's got to be diversified, really.
Yeah, yeah. being as young as you are in journalism, so it's not like you've been in it for 25 years or something, would you still go back to your college self and say, yeah, go down this path?
I mean, I would. I feel really lucky to be able to do this work. And I think I've been able to get a job and I've been able to hold a job. So I feel like for young journalists, I think you got to take your shot and you got to try.
Yeah.
I remember one of my kind of early mentors, she was my editor at my very first internship at LA Magazine. And I remember my family had kind of scared me a little bit about going into journalism. And, I was thinking about, maybe I should think about PR. And I remember I had a coffee with her or something, and she was so mad at me.
Oh, she was. Don't go to the dark side.
Yeah. I mean, she said, don't go to the dark side, but also she said, you gotta try. Don't quit before you've even started if this is what you really want to do. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a rough business and it's a rough industry, but I feel like you have to take your shot, and that would still be my advice. And, if that doesn't work out and that doesn't make sense, then you can reevaluate.
Yeah.
But, I wouldn't necessarily go to journalism school. I mean, I did not go to journalism school. I would not advise people to go to journalism school. It's just too expensive.
Yes.
If you can and you're in the position to take your shot, do it.
Do it. That's a great one, Katharine. I haven't had too many people say, yeah, you take a shot.
Maybe it's because I'm still young and naive. I don't know.
Hey, that's okay. I'll take it.
Let's talk in 5 years. We'll see where I'm at.
I'll take it. All right. Well, to wrap up, Katharine, we're going to play our Mad Lib.
Okay.
Which is shockingly highly accurate.
Oh, okay.
So let's see how it goes for you. Okay. First off, what is a catchphrase? Any catchphrase?
Democracy dies in darkness.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay. What about a journalist scare phrase?
Algorithms.
Oh, that's a scary one.
I feel like my life is so dictated by the algorithms on social media and what it serves people to read,
Mm-hmm. Okay, what about an empowering journalism buzzword?
Accountability.
Okay, adjective.
Leafy.
Leafy. I love it.
I'm staring at my plants right now.
Okay, perfect. Part of a pitch.
Context.
Then what about another adjective?
Broken.
And then another part of a pitch.
Embargo time.
Mm-hmm. What about an amount of time?
A week.
Another adjective. Almost done.
Tall.
Singular noun.
Chair.
Okay, what about a topic?
Misinformation.
And then a verb ending in ing.
Running.
Okay, and then just a regular verb.
Send.
Okay. Are you ready, Katharine?
I'm ready.
Here we go. To me, tech journalism is how democracy dies in the dark. It consists of algorithms and accountability on the daily. If a pitch has a leafy context, I will absolutely respond to it. However, if a pitch has a broken embargo, you can expect no reply from me. That's totally, that's the first fully factual one I've heard so far. Okay. If a week goes by and you still don't hear back from me, you can just assume I'm not really tall about it. The best stories always have chairs and are usually about misinformation. The best way to reach me is by running to me, but you can also just send it to me. Okay, there's some accuracies in there.
Okay, yeah, there's some pieces of that work.
I love it.
Great.
Katharine, thank you so much for your time and your grace and all your plant love. I can feel the leafiness from here. Please send us a photo. We need to see this.
Oh, okay.
Do you put them all together? Do they all hang out as a choir or something?
They kind of do. It's true. I actually turned 2 or 3 shower caddies into little plants.
No.
Yes, I'll send a picture. It's very cute.
Oh, that sounds like a perfect Etsy thing.
Yeah, it hangs on my window.
Turn your caddy into a plant thing.
Except there was no DIY whatsoever. I'm not a DIY person, so.
Hey, that's okay. That's okay.
Great. Well, thank you so much. This has been really fun.
Thank you, Katharine. This was great.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Coffee with the Journalist featuring Katharine Schwab from Fast Company. If you like our show, make sure to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to learn more about One Pitch, head to our website at onepitch.co to see the unique ways we're helping journalists and public relations professionals start great stories. We'll be back next week with an all-new guest and even more insights about the tech journalists you want to learn more about. Until then, start great stories.